Your body transforms into what it needs to be. What's actually physically possible? Where's my ceiling? I want to keep pushing to see what that is too now. The goal is to get awareness and raising tons of money. I don't care at all about trophies. I care about impact. One person can't change an entire environment, but a group of people can change an entire country.
Resilience is more than just enduring hardships. It's about finding purpose and strength through the struggle. And today, we have the honor of catching up with Sachin Latti, a former law enforcement officer in Canada who has transformed his own battles with mental health and PTSD into a mission of hope and healing. Sach first came on our podcast last January, and you can still listen to his backstory in episode 29. Now, Sach just completed an intense challenge of running 60 kilometers a day for 60 days and is preparing to embark on an even more ambitious journey next year. And just for reference for our American listeners, 60 kilometers is over 37 miles for 60 days, and he's going to do something harder next year, running across Canada to raise awareness and funds for mental health. With a deep personal connection to the cause, Sach's story is one of unyielding determination, unwavering purpose, and a commitment to making a difference in the lives of others. Sach, it's great to have you back on the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me back on, man.
Absolutely. As our listeners open up their trusty Strava app and begin tracking their own journeys, I'm going to jump right in because you've taken on some incredible physical challenges. Why? I mean, like, what's your why behind the journey? Does it and how does it fuel everything you're doing?
It's a good question, man. And I think it's changed or evolved. Not changed, but it's evolved over the last 2 or 3 years. When I first started, it was just for me to kind of keep me moving forward in a positive direction, keep me on track. Manage my own mental health because, we all struggle with many things from time to time. And for me, that's what it started out as. And then, through discovering myself and finding out who I am and who I am authentically, it started to evolve into what it is now, which is pushing the envelope performance-wise for me. And then also raising awareness for mental health support for veterans and first responders with occupational stress injuries.
That's so great. And you're right, like running, especially like running as the chosen meditative activity that we do, right? Like sometimes it's a bit to avoid the pain. Other times, it's to lose the weight. But I've found it super therapeutic when I go out there, no headphones, unplugged, just me and my breath. However, that only pushes me so far. I feel like sometimes I need a deeper why behind the miles that I start logging, especially when I start going for multiple hours. Why do you feel it's important for others to have a why or a purpose in their life, especially when they're facing their own difficulties?
Well, I know for me, if my why wasn't so strong, I don't know if I'd be doing a lot of things, man, because it helps me to remain driven and on task. And so it's kind of, like I said earlier, it's kind of evolved, right? So now I've kind of gotten to a point, like when I first started, it was just like, okay, doing a thing and kind of running and now I've gotten to a point where, wait a second, I'm entering a different level now of the type of running I'm doing and how much I'm running. And now that's kind of opened up a new box for me where it's like, oh man, what's actually physically possible? What's my potential? Where's my ceiling? And so it's kind of transitioned into a bit of that now where I'm like, oh man, I want to keep pushing to see what that is too now.
That's such a cool why that's transitioned, because just to recap some people, you used to be a power lifter, especially when you were law enforcement. And then right around the time of the pandemic, when all the gyms shut down is when you started running, and you were already in your 40s. And I know a lot of people in my realm, when I talk to them about running and stuff like that, they're like, oh, it's so bad for you, or, it's nothing that you can do long term, especially, at the time that I started running this cycle, I was probably around 220 pounds of obesity, not your physical conditioning. What was some of the mental hurdles that you felt yourself facing? Because one of your first challenges almost 2 years ago was running 22 marathons in 22 days. Was that correct?
Yeah, I mean, so first I wanted to say kudos to you, man, because I've been tracking what you've been doing, and you've made a massive shift in your health and wellness, and I can see the results, and good for you, right? And I want to give you kudos on that
Thank you.
before we get too far into it.
You're an inspiration for it. Seriously. I mean,
Well,
in my
we
40s
inspire.
now.
Well, we inspire each other, right? And that's, I think, how we should be doing things. Now, I started this. Really, it was before the 22 marathons. It's about maybe in 2021 is when I kind of started pushing the envelope a little bit for me. And in November 7th, 2021, I ran 100 kilometers. It wasn't a race. It was just something that I wanted to do to raise money for veterans and first responders with PTSD. And that's kind of what opened up sort of the Pandora's box. And when I did that, I was like, wow, I didn't think that was possible for me. What else is possible? So then that's kind of, I'm very curious, right? And I want to keep pushing the envelope. And after I had done that, then I was like, okay, what else can I do? And I scheduled myself to do 9 ultra marathons in 9 months in 2022. And I did that. And again, raised awareness and funds for charities that I support through that endeavor. So helping myself, but also helping others at the same time. And then the third year is when I did the 22 marathons in 22 days. So in 2023, I did that. And it wasn't like races. I was running across the province of British Columbia. And so I was running the distance of a marathon every day. So 42.2 kilometers every single day. Some days was a little bit more just because how kind of routing was working. But after that endeavor, it really changed me, I think, the way I see things and the way I see myself and what I wanted to do moving forward. And then, yeah, it led to this past summer, which was it might sound strange, but a training block for next year. So it was, yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of how it unfolded.
That's really cool. And again, thank you for following me along this journey. You know, running has always been a passion of mine. Unfortunately, it comes plagued with different injuries, not knowing how to stay healthy, especially when training. I've only managed to complete 2 marathons in my life. And I mean, even recently, following a 15-mile jog through the neighborhood, you know, just coming up with new pains and going, okay, like I need to take a rest. And for your most recent challenge, the 60 kilometers in 60 days, I mean, you were running every single day this distance. And I know sometimes it was broken into segments. You've got a treadmill next to your bed. You've got a beautiful environment. Unfortunately, it does still get hot too. And we know why you're doing it. But I'd like to know, like, how are you capable of doing this? With your body type, with your mindset, like how would the challenge go first, and how did you go about completing it?
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify a couple things there. And I've said it on my social media, but it's impossible for people to track every single thing that gets posted, right? And it wasn't every single day.
Okay.
Right? It was 6 days a week I was doing it. Right. And one of those days, and not because, I was unable to or anything like that. So there was challenges with every challenge that you do that present themselves. Right. And so last year when I did my 22 marathons, I was not around my house. I was across the province. So my only thing that I had to do was run every single day. Now, this time around, I was in my place. So I have responsibilities to still make sure that I keep on top of. I have a daughter. I have other sort of things that I'm kind of managing at the same time. So on Fridays, my daughter's with me. And on Saturday afternoon, she leaves. So on Friday until Saturday afternoon, I don't do a thing. I'm with her. So that's why it wasn't every single day. So I was running 360 kilometers every week, so not 420. Now, having said that, there were challenges, but there were different challenges than there were last year. My challenges this year were managing all the things in my life while I was still at home. I didn't have to manage those things as much when I was running in last year because, I was not here. And so certain things were already kind of taken care of while I was doing it. And it was only 22 days, so I could manage not kind of staying on top of things for that amount of time. But in this case, I had, other responsibilities, primarily mostly which was super important for me, is to be around for my daughter, not being away from her. Because next year I'll be away from her for an extended period of time. I wanted to make sure that I didn't make that sacrifice this year. I'll make that sacrifice next year. And also, I'm trying to expand the footprint of what I'm doing. So that also requires certain types of engagement on my side, not in the social media space, but in the three-dimensional space, like in real, like around me. So I like to engage with people, I like to talk to people, I like to talk to different groups. And so I was doing that as well. So yeah, those were the challenges that I was trying to manage. And I think the first 2 weeks were really hard, like really hard, because it was a challenge for me to manage everything logistically, like, oh, my daughter, this, that, bills, boom, 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 all these different things. And it was until about after the second week, a friend of mine and his wife bought me a treadmill. So I went out with them, a friend of mine, Seb Lavoie. He's a retired SWAT team member and all around good guy. And he's one of my good buddies. And I went, and he just had his, I think it's his left leg beneath the knee amputated. So he, on one of my runs, he wanted to come out and run with me with his wife. So they joined for about 10 kilometers in and around that. And we were just talking, and I was just explaining, hey, some of the challenges I was experiencing. And then a week later, they stop off my house and they drop off a treadmill. And I was like, what the heck, man? And he goes, hey, man, like it's ridiculous that you don't have a treadmill, especially for what you're doing right now. And I framed this entire 60 days as a training block, not as the actual goal of achieving what I need to achieve, which is next year. This year's goal is to build myself to be able to do what I need to do next year. So that was also a challenge I had to reframe, because I was conflating this year with next year. And I was like, oh man, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And then I had to take a step back because it was really affecting me mentally. And I was like, okay, wait a second. What's the purpose of these 60 days? The purpose of this is to train me, my body, to get to a certain point and to raise some money and raise awareness. Right. And so when he got me the treadmill, man, it made a huge difference, because now I just put it next to my bed, and it actually helped with scheduling things, timelines, picking up my daughter, dropping her off, taking her to jiu-jitsu, going to camp, like all these different things that we're doing. I was able to then, get up at certain times. Maybe I'll crank out 15K, go pick her up, drop her off somewhere, come back home, do a few more, and do whatever else I needed to do. So it made a huge difference. So the first 2 weeks were challenging. And then after that, when I got the treadmill, things became routine, and I started just cranking it out. And it was almost, I don't want to say easy, because it's not easy, but it was manageable. And then I got sick. In the last 3 weeks, I've been sick just because the workload I was putting out, and I think my immune system crashed, and I was around my daughter and she had a bit of a cough, and then I just took it, and it just kind of just went through my lungs, and I've been phlegming and coughing the whole entire time. So that was kind of a challenge. So the energy levels kind of dropped over the last 3 weeks. But yeah, so I just wanted to clarify, because people have been saying, 60 days straight. Well, no, not really. It's been, 6 days out of 7, but it's been a total of 60 days out of the entire time. Every time I ran, it was 60 kilometers.
Well, I'll say that's even more nuts, though, because now you're taking what was around 7 to 8 weeks and you're extending it for almost another half month. So now we're doing 10 weeks of running. That's the entire summer dedicated to this training block for an even longer summer next year. And you also have to balance all of this, because you were, as you mentioned, home and trying to manage life as well. And I know I have trouble just getting out. And I mean, I have a beautiful path right outside my house, and it's really easy to wake up at 4 a.m. and go run for 2 hours in terms of the convenience. But then you have to go to work, or you have to, go grocery shopping still, or, you've got stuff that you have to do, all these responsibilities. And you put it out there that you were going to be doing this training block. You were going to be doing the 60 kilometers a day. You told the public, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. Support me in doing this, which meant that you had no option. You have to push through the sickness in order to complete it. How do you prepare yourself both mentally and physically to take something like this on and say, hey, I'm going to push. I've committed to 10 weeks. And this is what I'm doing.
It wasn't an option. I didn't even think of it. I mean, how I kind of function, generally speaking, is if I say it, it's already done. And I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I just have to go through the motions then. So in my mind, when I say it, it's completed, it's done, and then I just have to go through the motions. So when I got sick, it wasn't so much like, oh man, I can't run today. It was more like, okay, how do I still get it done? How do I still make it happen? So, so I had to shift a couple things. I had to remove running outside every single day from time to time and do a bit more treadmill work because I was able to recover faster using the treadmill rather than going outside because of the heat and all the other things. Like, so for me, it would be a little bit easier crushing the miles on the treadmill on some days. And I would be able to then, okay, maybe 2 or 3 days I'm on the treadmill, then I'll go back outside. And then, and let's say it's a really hot day, maybe I'll go run 40 outside and the last 20 will be recovery protocol on the treadmill. So then I kind of take it back in. My body temperature starts cooling off. I start drinking tons of water during that last 20. And so then really set myself up for the next day rather than, oh, everything's got to crush this one. No, we got to be able to figure out how to do all of them and be able to sustain it. So my pace was slower than what I would normally do on one, right? Like my pace was like each day would be about 7 to 7.5 hours of moving time for running. So if I was just running 160K, yeah, I'd probably do that, a lot faster. But I had to figure out how to manage over a long period of time and what my body can handle and what it can't handle.
With your training, because you had kind of broken it up, I know I follow you on Strava. I had followed your Strava stuff leading up to this as well, and I got to watch. Your heart rate, for one, is kind of what motivated me to embark and kind of see what my body is capable of, as well, dealing with whatever injuries I have, and coming in at the weight. And I found, lowering that heart rate has allowed me to push further. And I think we even had a brief conversation about something that I'm trying to do. How has your pace and heart rate monitoring really contributed to you being able to continue to train and push these distances on a consistent basis?
Yeah, super helpful for me. If I can maintain 120 heart rate, maybe even up to 130, 35, I'm good. Every day I can go. I can keep going. Like I mean, honestly, like Sunday was my last day. I could have went and done another 60K on Monday. I could have done another one today. I could have kept going. It's just I'm just sick. It's not like my body's broken. It's just my feet are fine, my legs are fine, my body's okay. It's just my lungs and the energy. But from a physical perspective, I can keep going. I'm good. So for the heart rate was super important. What I did notice over the last 2 or 3 weeks, my heart rate started jumping up because of the sickness. So some of the days I was getting a bit higher, 150, 160. And the last day I was in around 170. So I noticed it started climbing. And so that was kind of not concerning, but I was like, okay, well, I only got a couple days left, whatever. But so yeah, I hope that answered the question.
It absolutely did. And for those that aren't super familiar with it or are skeptical about what their bodies are capable of, what was the purpose of keeping the heart rate low during the runs? Like, what does that do, and where did that inspiration come from?
Well, I mean, I've talked to tons of different people. I work with a lot of different people who are a lot smarter than me in various different spaces, right? So, I have a run coach that helps me, right? He programs some my running for me. Well, not during my 60K, but leading up to it, he was programming my training. And over the last few years, I do my own research. I read on my own, and I try to understand things. And I'm very curious. I like to engage a ton of different things and a ton of different people and get their insight as well. So I understand that if my heart rate's at a lower heart rate for an extended period of time, it's fine. It's as if like I'm walking, trying to get my heart rate to a point where it's like as if I'm walking, but I'm running at a slower pace. So like we're walking all day, your heart rate might be at 60 or 70. I want to figure out how to get my heart rate to like 100 when I'm running. And what that does is, or how that's achievable, I think, like I don't know quite yet because I'm still trying, but I think it just takes years, man. Years and years and years of doing what I'm doing. Eventually it'll get to a point where my VO2 max and my baseline is just whatever, like resting heart rate 40. And then when it jumps up, yeah, okay, let's say it jumps up at 80. Well, that's a high heart rate if it's from 40 to 80. So then you can recover a lot faster.
That's awesome. And how has this affected your muscle mass and stuff like that?
I mean, naturally, it's gonna. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine a few years ago. A friend of mine, Sean Taylor. He's a retired Tier 1 operator from JTF2 in Canada, Special Operations. And I was telling him about how I wanted to run across Canada and all that kind of stuff. At the time, I was pretty big, man. I looked like a bodybuilder, and I was pretty jacked. And he's like, "Okay, cool, man. You're gonna go from Thor to Loki." And you know what? I mean, it's just the way it is, man. Like your body transforms into what it needs to be. And for me, I used to have an ego about all that stuff, and now I just don't care, man. Like I saw some people the other day after my run, and they're like, "Oh, you look great!" Like this. That. I don't care. Like I mean, because they were saying it in a way like to be complimentary, right? And for me, I was just like, yeah, if I'm skinny, I'm skinny. I really makes no difference to me now because I need my body to be able to do what it needs to do, and it has to transform into what it needs to transform in for me to do that, and I'm okay with that. When I want to do something else later, it'll transform into that. So I'm in the process right now of trying to execute against a goal. That goal is not done until 2025 at the end of the summer. Once that's done, then I'll reevaluate.
That's awesome to have that mindset and that piece about you. Quick geek out session because I need to know as I'm preparing myself. What shoes are you typically running in? What gear are you wearing? Clothes, fuel sources? Like, how are you doing this?
Yeah, my watch, I'm using a Garmin Enduro. It's pretty light. It lasts quite a few days without charging. I think probably with GPS mode, it's probably about 25 days, 25 days in and around there. And it's a lighter watch, so I like the lighter watch. So I like that one. And then for shoes, I was rotating a bunch of different ones. I was using Asics Glide Ride 3. It has a bit of a rocker on it and a decent amount of cushion and not a ton of stability on the ankles, but it was good enough for me. And I used them last year for the 22 marathons, and I really liked them. This year, I also introduced the Lululemon's new male running shoe. It's called Beyond Feel. That wasn't bad on days where my feet were feeling a bit mangled because it had a bit more cushion in it. Not as much of a rocker, but I'm not trying to go super fast anyways. I'm just trying to kind of get the job done. So that was kind of nice. I think primarily those are the ones I used. I mean, I kind of threw in here and there some other ones, but I mean, I wouldn't really mention them because I mean, I didn't really use them a ton.
Mm-hmm. When you're out there jogging or out there running these distances, how are you fueling yourself? Like, are you eating as you're going? If so, like what are you eating? I've got a couple of longer races coming up myself, and I'm trying to incorporate the training for those.
So a couple of things maybe to consider, which I did when I first started this, was my friend Sean actually suggested this to me, and he's like, just think like a professional athlete. So now if you apply a professional mindset to whatever you're doing, you'll then take it a lot more seriously. So for me, as soon as I started this entire process, I thought in my head, okay, I'm a professional athlete now. Because at work or in law enforcement, I can be a professional there. So I can very easily apply that sort of thinking to another place. So as soon as I started thinking that way, I was like, okay, how do I become a professional athlete? So and how do I perform or optimize my performance for whatever I'm going to do? And that takes a lot of experimentation, a lot of trial and error, a lot of me experimenting on various different fuel sources throughout the last 3 years to see what I like and what I think works best for me. So anytime I suggest anything to anyone, I'll suggest what I do, but I also urge them to also do a whole bunch of other things so that they can test what works for them and what doesn't. So for me, I don't eat much while I'm running. I just do liquid fuel. So I'm drinking it rather than eating it. So about every hour, depending on the heat and whatnot, every hour I'm having 700 milliliters of water with approximately 50 grams of carbs and about 400 milligrams of sodium and electrolytes. And I'll have that every hour. Oh, sorry. And maybe with a little bit of protein to keep me satiated so I don't get hungry. So like, maybe 4 grams of protein. So I measure it all out, and every hour that's what I'm having. And then after my run, I just start eating whatever as much as I possibly can, because during that 7 hours, I'm not taking enough calories in. So let's say after my entire run, I haven't had enough protein for the day. So I'll crush about 60 grams of protein right after in a protein drink. And then maybe another hour and a half later, then I start eating and whatever I want to eat, primarily carb sources, but I got my protein source, right? I got it, I want to at least get about 150 grams, 50 grams of protein a day. I might not be able to get the full amount, but it's also different for a sustained running over days and days and days and days, right? So let's say if you're going to do just one event, you can kind of play around with how you're going to take in your protein and all the other things. But for me, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't disrupting my gut too much over a long period of time. So I had to keep things relatively simple and not too much protein every single day. But yeah, so every hour having that. And then afterwards, man, I was enjoying food, man. I did pasta, chips, ice cream, cookies, because you got to keep in mind, I've lost about 15 pounds through the entire thing too, right?
Oh, wow.
The last 2 months, I lost about 15, 16 pounds. I started at about 185 and, last day I was about 169. So there's no way over that, at least I don't know a way that you can maintain your weight and size without losing weight over a period of time, burning that many calories. You just can't eat enough food. So really my job now is over the next 2 or 3 weeks is to kind of compensate for that too. So it's not just during the run. Now after 2 or 3 weeks after, I have to make sure that I have the right protocol in place so that I can kind of still recover, eat, and do all the things.
How's the body feeling now that you're recovery? You're 2 days out from your completion, your last race. Like, how are things feeling right now for you?
Body's fine. Like my legs, my feet, and a little tightness here and there, but nothing that's nothing that would be, oh man, you just did that. Like you know what I mean? And honestly, it's just the congestion and the sinuses. That's really it, and the fatigue. So probably what it is maybe a bit of central nervous fatigue, but that's to be expected when you're kind of doing what I'm doing. So, that's easy to recover from. A week to 2 weeks of no running, and then reevaluate after those 2 weeks, and then get back to it.
I'm super curious to see how it feels like once the body and central nervous system has adjusted.
Oh yeah, sorry to interrupt, but I think it's going to be awesome, man. Because I just crushed 3,600 miles, 3,600 kilometers. So the base kilometers or base miles on that, I think it's going to level me up like crazy, man. Like I think there's going to be a level of resilience in my body. And I'm excited to see what it looks like. So yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. Let us all know, because I'm again aspirations. You started this journey in your 40s, and there's shirts that runners have that says my sport is your sport's punishment. For some, running is just so physically grueling. But I know for myself, without it, I wouldn't have a lot of the mental clarity that I get. How has running helped you work through some of your own mental health challenges?
Oh man, I never thought it would to the degree that it has. It allows me to process things throughout the entire day because I'm kind of on my own running, right? So I process daily. It's even a hard question to answer, man. I'm just a different human now than I was 4 years ago. I don't even know how to say how it's helped me. It's transformed me. Without running, without this whole endeavor, I wouldn't be who I am now, man. Mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, all of the things have shifted in a direction that I never thought they would. And at the rate or speed it has. And maybe that's because I've gone all in it and just really turned the dial to 10 to see how far I can go. But man, I urge anyone out there who struggling with whatever, find something that you can sink your teeth into, man. Because I think that's what it was for me. It was just, I needed something to latch onto and to dive deep into and figure out a passion for. And I think with passion, if you don't have passion, life becomes very difficult. It becomes super difficult.
Has there been any moments during your runs where you felt like you've gone through a personal breakthrough in your own understanding? And if so, would you mind sharing a bit of that with us?
Yeah, man. I think it was about a few weeks ago. I was running into the evening because so when my daughter would leave on Saturdays, she'd leave around 1 or 2 o'clock. So then I'd start running, right? So I wouldn't be done until like 10, 11 at night. And, some days, like it was one day I was like in a bit of pain, my legs and everything were feeling the discomfort and the inflammation and all the things. And I'm just trying to find different ways to still keep moving. When you feel that much discomfort, you're like, okay, maybe I'll just walk a little bit and then go again. Maybe I'll walk a little bit. So I would do that from time to time, but I was trying to find ways to use the discomfort as fuel, like cognitive behavioral therapy, like CBT. Like, okay, as soon as I feel that discomfort, then say to myself, fuel, and then push harder. So I would try to make a connection to the pain to push. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like,
no, absolutely.
like I don't know if it's like, I mean, I was trying it and it worked that evening, and then I kind of tried to keep doing it. So and I think what'll happen, and look, I don't know what'll happen, but I'm considering if I'm able to continuously do that over a period of time, maybe I'll be able to shift my mind into like embracing that discomfort and pushing even harder when I feel it. So what I mean, like I'll give you an example on how it's worked for me before. I used to hate running outside in the rain or in the cold weather or whatever. The weather would be terrible, right? And I'd be like, oh man, I got to go outside now. Like just even on training blocks, right? And I didn't like that it would slow me down or pause my action. So I started thinking, how do I overcome that? And I thought, okay, every time I see it, like I look out my door and I see the windows and I look out, and if it's crappy out, I'll just say to myself, awesome, good, whatever, like whatever positive word I need to say, I'll say it. And obviously at the beginning I was like, man, it's not awesome, but okay, awesome. And I would go and it would suck. But I think over a period of time, it shifted. And it got to the point where I would look outside and I would actually feel excited and say, freaking awesome, let's go. And so I think there might be a connection to be able to say those things when I'm feeling the pain and discomfort and say to myself, use it as fuel. So that's why I'm applying that sort of technique with when I'm feeling the pain, because I think it worked there. So maybe it'll work over here.
That's really cool that you're using it as like a type of therapy to push through those harder moments. I know when you talk about running in the cold, just because I live out in Hawaii, I started this year's running journey as you know, in Quebec province. Most of it because of the snow and the ice, and I didn't have the right equipment for it, was done inside a gym. But anytime I had an opportunity to run in sub 20 degree, I don't know what that is in Celsius, but those February winter months when the ice cleared off the sidewalks, I love running outside in all sorts of gear. But it didn't start there because there was pain at the beginning of the year. When I started this, I was able to do 20 minutes consistently, and I really was trying to focus on just my heart rate, keeping my heart rate under 150, because I wanted to kind of stay in the fat burning zone of my body, because I had a lot of weight to drop at that time. And I was like, all right, well, 20 minutes is all I can do to keep my heart rate low. Now I'm at two hours before it goes above 150. I'm like, all right, well, like, let's continue to progress. But I know like there's been different levels of challenge with it. And I do a lot of intuitive running. I haven't set a specific goal for myself in years that is performance driven. I'm just like, yeah, I have a race. I'm not worried about the race. Of the challenges that you've set for yourself, the 22 marathons, running across your province, the 60 kilometers in 10 weeks, what's been the most mentally and physically difficult for you?
They both have their own unique mental and physical challenges. I put a lot of pressure on myself, right? So I think fundamentally it comes there, and I don't want to let people down. I want to meet timelines. Like, so those are the things that really get at me. And if I'm able to remove those, then it's easier for me, but it's so hard for me to remove those sort of roadblocks. Like, I mean, even little things like on Sunday on my last run, it was like, okay, timeline, we have to be at this certain location at 2:00 to meet with other people. Just that alone just bothers me. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to be here at this time. I got to make this cut. All these different things. So I have to find better ways to manage that. And for me to do that, I have to continue putting timelines on myself so I can figure out better ways to get at it.
What do you think it is about that? So like you're talking about, okay, at 2 p.m. I have this event, and that adds like a level of anxiety to the morning run. And I get that when I wake up. I'm like, if I wake up and I feel like I want to go run for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I know that I have to be at work at 7 a.m., that means my run needs to be done by 6:15 so that I can shower, shave, get my breakfast, get my lunch made so that I could head out the door. And again, this is for me, if I don't step out the door by 4:15, I'm most likely not going to go for that run. Or if I do go for a run, it's going to be significantly shorter, and I'm not going to necessarily enter that headspace that I want to get in from my run. Is that what you're kind of describing for yourself too?
I think so, man. I think that's accurate. So I'm just trying to find ways to be able to manage that better. Now, it's hard because I don't want to let people down. It might sound silly. It might sound silly, and I don't want people to like. I really am to a certain, not self-conscious, but I do consider that people are tracking what I'm doing, and I do consider and think about, oh, I want to do this the right way, and I want to make sure it's done correctly, and I don't want people thinking that something is not getting done or something is getting done and it isn't. Like I just want, like all these things are going through my head. And you know, I probably shouldn't, because probably no one gives a crap about any of those things, and they're just like, oh, he's doing great or whatever, right? But they still happen, and I'm no different than anyone else. I still have to figure out ways for me to manage all these things, and it's probably going to be an ongoing process, man. Like I'm probably going to be, you know, trying to figure that out forever. But I'm a lot better than I was yesterday, and I was a lot better at it than I was last year. So for me, I reflect on that. I reflect on where was I 4 years ago. Because I inevitably, people do say, oh man, I haven't done this, haven't done this, haven't done this in the moment, right? But if you take a step back for a second and say, okay, where was I last year? Where was I the year before? And if there's a significant delta or shift in that, then it makes me feel better. It's like, okay, well, I wasn't nearly at, you know, doing the things that I'm doing now. So we're on the right track. We're doing the right things. And for me, I just have to find better ways to become more free mentally and not thinking about so many things. So I'm trying to prepare next year to make that happen. And for that to happen, I kind of have a rough idea. I need to have a certain amount of infrastructure in place for next year that I don't need to think about anything, and everyone else takes care of everything for me. So that's the next challenge really, is, you know, training and figuring out how to crowdsource a significant amount of money to make sure that we're able to execute against my vision. And my vision's not cheap. I really do think it's probably going to be $150,000 for me to run across the country and do it the way I want to do it. And so, you know, these are the types of things I think about. I'm like, oh, how much? Because I don't want to just run. Like I want to impact as many people as possible. And how do we do that, man? It's by telling a story. It's by presenting something to people. It's about trying to find a way to resonate and connect with people. And that's, you know, the training from running over the last 4 years has been one part, but that's also been another part for me. How do I become a better person to tell a story, to engage with people, and do all that? And I would argue that's been the harder part for me. Like I can crush it, man. I can grind, I can train, I can do all that. It's not like, you know, I can be in discomfort doing those things. I think the other stuff that I'm talking about, way harder for me, because I'm not a people person. Like I like people. No, don't get me wrong. I like people, but I'm a massive introvert, man. And for me to go to various different run clubs, I've never gone to any run clubs, right? And I bet I could probably engage more people if I did. And then, okay, if I go to them, how do I engage with them? How do I talk to them? How do I share what we're doing? Like, so it's not about speaking to the choir. I mean, you're the choir, which is awesome, but we want to speak to people who know nothing. And most people, civilians or people who haven't had any experience in the space, don't know the issues that are here. Those are the people I think we need to be connecting with, not people in the veteran space, not people currently serving, not people who are first. I mean, whatever. That's awesome. Great. But man, there's a billion other people that don't know anything. That's what I want to hit up. And that's what I've been trying to think about, how to do that.
Thank you. That's what I needed to hear. Like when you're sitting there talking, when you're talking about like measuring progress, running is a progressive sport that takes years to develop. I wasn't a runner when I was younger. And, you know, when I talk to people nowadays, it's something that they are so glad is no longer a part of their life. But when I talk to a fellow runner, we know that it's not in how fast do you run this race today. It's okay, how long am I going to run for? Like I want to run into my 80s, and I want to be able to crush it, but then I don't want to just do it for me. Like, yes, I'm curious as to what my body can do as well. Like ultra runs are in my future somewhere as long as my neck and my back will hold out.
Sorry to interrupt, but I have to say this. If you do an ultra and I'm available, I'll come do it with you.
Sweet. We are there. Once I figure it out, and get the clearance from my medical team, I'll definitely let you know. It's measured in these years, but I also don't want to just like have that vanity metrics of saying, oh, I ran this distance. I want to do it for a reason that's beyond myself, because like we can do anything for selfish reasons, right? Like we can be the biggest person, we could be the best person, we could be the most handsome, the most well-spoken, but if it's not serving a greater purpose, what was the point all along, right? Like it becomes about vanity. I love that you're sitting there talking about how do I reach the greatest audience, because distance runners, I mean, you're not the only introverted distance runner. Like it's a solo sport. A lot of the times I pull out the headphones because I don't want something in my ear. And I just go out there and run, and people are like, oh, that's nuts. I'm like, I don't want a distraction. Like my thoughts are distracting me enough. I go out there and run so that I don't have to think, so that I can get a little clarity on issues, and I know that like having these goals and achieving them, there's studies that link goal setting and achieving them to a level of happiness. How has that process of setting and achieving your monumental goals affected your own healing and growth?
I don't know how to quantify it, man. Observing yourself doing something that you never thought possible for yourself, it's a big deal. And if you have low self-worth or low self-confidence, or you suffer with depression or whatever, that'll slow that stuff down real quick, right? If you're able to achieve something that you never thought possible. So like for me, I was never a runner either. I hated it, like a lot of people do. And you still hear people saying, oh, I'm not a runner. Even now, when I talk to people, I'm not a runner. I'm like, yeah, either am I. I started 3 years ago. So I think people are missing out on opportunities on how they can really feel good about themselves. And it's not like the running is just a tool to facilitate that process, right? Running is just a tool to help yourself realize what you're capable of and how you can move through life. At least for me, that's what it's been. I don't care at all about medals. I don't care at all about trophies. I care about impact and meaningful things. And I think doing a race and stuff is cool. But for me, it never got me up and never pushed the needle for me, man. Like I run 40K, 42, like a marathon, every day. Okay, cool. Like, I mean, I'm going to do a race for what? For me, it's like, what's the point, man? What am I? Okay, I got it faster. Right? For me to get a faster marathon, to do it the way I want to do it, I'll have to focus 5 years to crush that training alone, because I want to do sub 3 hours. So for me to do that, that takes time. So I've focused all my energy on ultra endurance running. So that's not a speed sport, like to the degree of running a marathon, right? Or a half. And why did I start doing that? It's because everyone knows distance and everyone knows that running's hard. That's why I started it. That's why I started the whole thing, because everyone can resonate with running and everyone knows that it's a difficult task. It was so that I can connect with people immediately. I mean, I was a jiu-jitsu guy and a bodybuilder. Like I could have done that, but no one cares. It doesn't resonate with people. And I wanted to try to find a way that I could connect faster with people and share that kind of sort of way of thinking.
Now, you've shared a little bit about a challenge that you've been dreaming of, and it's taking you years to build up to, and this year was that preparation for it. You said it's going to cost you about $150,000 if you were to do it yourself, and you're going to work on crowdfunding towards that. It's one of the reasons that you're on social media, not to necessarily crowdfund, but to reach the people that don't know about the issue, because like us veterans, first responders, and people that work in these emergency services, we know the issues within our community, and we know that suicide and mental health is a big one. But to your point, we need to reach the people outside. And so would you mind sharing what it is exactly that you're doing it, the structure of how you're going to do it, what you're looking to accomplish, and why, and how we can start supporting you in this endeavor, because it's going to be a large undertaking.
Well, 100%. Look, I'll need I'll need all the help and support I can get, man. I'll tell you that. Because again, I'm only one dude, man. And one person can't change an entire environment, but a group of people can change an entire country and a way of thinking. So for me, I guess I'm kind of uniquely situated in this scenario because I'm an Indo-Canadian, right? My parents were born in India, so I also have a connection with that community, which is a very, very philanthropic community, and that has no clue at all about first responders and veterans and how they struggle, but they do like to support them, and they just don't know that they need it. So that's one sort of avenue. Another avenue is, and I'm not even talking the first responder space, jiu-jitsu community. I'm in that community as well. I'm in the bodybuilding community. All these spaces have no understanding and knowledge. So that takes time to develop and understanding and connecting with that community. Now, I belong to the Sikh faith, and it's a faith that aligns itself with service to the community at a high degree. Like it's one of the tenets of the faith. And the faith has a very strong military presence within it and a doctrine within it. So there are ways I can articulate to certain types of groups, charities that are very large that might want to be able to get involved in this process. So there's a charity called Khalsa Aid. It's an international charity that was started by a guy named Ravi Singh, and he's from England. And he started this charity, I think maybe 20 years ago, to their motto is look at the world, something to the effect of like look at the world as one, or everyone is the same, something to that effect. And so they go service people that don't belong to the faith at all. They go to war-torn countries, they go to like droughts, they just feed people and help people, and that's all they do. And they're really happy about what I'm doing. I'm also going to be the first person of color to run across the country. So that also expands the reach, especially in the climate that we're in now. And I think, I don't care too much about politics. I don't care too much about certain types of things, but I do care about capitalizing on certain things that can help other people. And for me, if that's going to be a way to kind of galvanize or force multiply what I'm doing, then I'm going to engage it. So there are multiple different levels, multiple different communities that I'm going to try to continue to engage with. I've been engaging with them for the last 3 or 4 years. I've been on multiple different podcasts on different languages, different radio stations, different TV programs, not massive ones, but it's a start. And the conversation is starting to be had in these types of communities. Whatever small part I'm playing there now, it's starting to kind of come up. So that's one kind of angle. Another angle is I'm going to hire a PR firm, man. It's going to cost me something. So that's part of the reason why I created the GoFundMe. So my goal for this year was to raise $25,000 for the charity. We've reached that goal. So now I've shifted the GoFundMe into a $10,000 sort of crowdfunding so that I can kind of help pay for some of the logistics and some of the media attention that I think will be helpful to eventually raise way more money when I'm running across the country. So my goal is to raise like $1 million, man. And this is what my vision is. And I've had it since 4 years ago. And now I think if I say it, people won't think I'm as crazy as I was when I was saying it back then. I want to have a tour bus decked out with all the sponsors. I want to have an entire crew with me, film crew filming the entire thing, and we're pushing up content every single day. I want to have a crew with me, like a support crew, massage, all the people sorting that out. I want to think of nothing other than running when I'm running across the country, because my goal is to attempt to break the record for the fastest run across Canada. And that is extremely challenging for someone who just started running 4 years ago. The record to run across Canada was set a couple of years ago by an ultramarathoner who's been doing it his entire life. And he ran across Canada 105 kilometers a day for 67 days, 10 hours. And that's just the kilometers. So now to add a bit more nuance to the difficulty, running across Canada is the equivalent of climbing Mount Everest 7 times the vertical gain, because we're going through the Rocky Mountains in 2 provinces. So all of the vertical gain is in about 2 provinces, British Columbia and Alberta, most of it, right? So it's something that it's like otherworldly to be able to do it. Like when you hear people like Nims Dai doing what he did, I would argue doing what's to run across Canada in a record time. It's the same thing, man. And look, I don't know if I'll beat the record. I honestly don't know. And the odds are really stacked against me because I'm a dude who just started running. But I'm training to do it. I'm putting everything into it to see if I can do it. Will I do it? I don't know. Will I get close? Maybe. Will I be a lot further than I was 4 years ago? 100%. And if I get to 80, 90, or 100 kilometers, or even get to breaking the record, cool. The goal is to get awareness and raising tons of money. That's the priority. Everything else is secondary to me.
That's absolutely amazing, Sach. And I know that you're impacting so many lives in different spaces along the way. We believe that you're going to be able to accomplish it. We're some of your biggest cheerleaders. I talk about you probably on a regular basis about this guy that's running 60 kilometers a day, that's completed all of these things. When I think about like lofty goals and where I want to push myself, and then I share that with other people, and it does help them. It does help reframe a lot of their mindsets. And for us, we talk about building those foundations. We talk about, hey, you don't need to go and run across Canada. You don't need to do the things that we do. You just need to start with 1 mile. You need to start with 20 minutes. Change your life today, starting foundationally. Because the sad part is that there is an ongoing crisis with suicide rates among service members, veterans, first responders, anybody. I know in the States, the statistics is 48% of Americans are affected by suicide. That's across the board. That's every other person you meet has either thought about it or attempted or known somebody to have died by suicide. What message of hope would you like to have for somebody that is currently battling their own mental health demons?
Look, I was there 4 years ago. I was in a darkness, depressed state. Didn't think life was worth living. Didn't think I was worth anything. All the things that I'm sure a lot of 48% of the people think of, right? And not everyone has to do what I'm doing because not everyone really wants to. And I think what people should consider is that you can do something and you can impact people. It doesn't matter if if you're doing good, it doesn't matter if it's affecting one person or 1 million people. Good is good. So it makes no difference on the level of which it is. So yeah, okay, cool, I'm running whatever. Doesn't really matter. What matters is the conversation that we're having with individuals at each time. And I'm happy that you mentioned, not happy, I'm pleased that you were mentioning something that I was doing, but the reality is I talk about other people all the time about what they're doing and how those stories are also impactful because look, I understand maybe I can't resonate with somebody because they're gonna be like, what? I'm not gonna do that. Right off the bat, they might shut off. But the reality is anyone can do it if they wanted to. If they had the flexibility and time and all this other stuff. But I think everyone can make an impact on themselves and their community around them. I just started with, I just wanted to be the best version of myself. That was my mantra and still is to this day. I want to be the best version of myself. Actually, I'll tell you what, this is my why. And I wrote it down. My why is I want to maximize my skill sets for everyone around me and to affect permanent positive change. That's why I do everything that I'm doing. Because for me to do that, I have to push the envelope for me. That's just who I am. But anyone can apply that sort of mission statement or why to their own lives and interpret it how they want to. Just be the best version of yourself for everyone around you. That's pretty simple. You don't have to run 100K or 1,000 or whatever, right? Just be the best version of yourself. And if that means, it's not in physical space, yeah, cool, man. Do it in something else. Sink your teeth into something else, man. If it's writing a book or, writing a song, making music, like something. And just be the best version of yourself, man. You'll see a huge difference in how you function because you're seeing improvements and you're achieving them on your own level. And then that's what kind of starts the domino effect. I know that wasn't quick, but that was a bit long. So anyways, that was my 2 cents, man.
I love your 2 cents, and it never has to be quick. I mean, that's ultra running, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
As our conversation wraps up, I want people to know where can they find and connect with you and support your mission.
I mean, the best place is probably Instagram. My Instagram account is at Sach, SACH.in.motion. And yeah, everything's primarily all there. My GoFundMe link is there. So if anyone wants to donate to the mission of me trying to execute against next year, feel free to do that. Eventually, my ultimate goal is, once this is all said and done in a year or so, is I'll probably be moving in the direction of starting a foundation, a charitable foundation, the Sachin Motion Foundation, eventually. I've opened up a donation fund right now, which allows me to take in donations and issue tax receipts. And then over a period of time, through, over the next year or two, I can then show proof of concept that, okay, we're able to do these things. And then I can apply for a charitable designation, so that eventually then all the stuff that I do will just be dumping money into that, and then, helping wherever we can, with whichever or whatever communities we were able to. And I think starting off with the first responder and veteran space, absolutely, because that's who I am and that's where I'm at. But, things grow and evolve, and who knows what it looks like in 10, 15, 20 years. Maybe we're just helping as many people as we possibly can in the mental health space. So that's kind of the direction. After running across Canada, I really don't know what I'm going to do, because everything for the last 4 years has been around that. And now I kind of am okay with that. I lead with my heart now, and I kind of, where my heart kind of pulls me, I just go there. And there's uncertainty, but it's been working out every single time. I just go where I feel like I need to go, and have a good time doing it.
Well, you're an incredible man with an incredible heart, and it's so good to catch up with you, Sach, and follow your journey, be a part of it. And I look forward to hopefully one day running an ultra with you.
100%, man. We're doing it. You just whenever you're ready, just let me know.
Absolutely. Thank you again for joining us one more time on the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast. And for our listeners, please remember you can also catch the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast on Wreaths Across America Radio, available on platforms like iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and the TuneIn app.